You know, I never ask people, how can I help you? Because I'm not Humpty Dumpty and I'm not going to put you back together. But I ask, how can I be useful to you? So how can I be useful to you at this time when we are all locked up and the world is going sugar? And how can we really cope and not to just really lose ourselves? So I like to be useful to you and ask you, how can I be useful to you?
Thank you. So actually, I'm not sure if you're talking about me and my wife. We have a good marriage. This is, I'm joking.
Yeah.
No, you're not. You have a good marriage.
I'm saying, no, I'm joking about this humor.
You know, maybe I'm going to start with 2 questions.
But Edith, before you begin, I just want to make sure that everyone is on, if that's okay, because 7 o'clock is approaching fast, but it's not there yet. And I got another 2 minutes. And also, I know a lot of people wish to join us. So then we'll make the formal introduction. But people are just still coming on, a lot of people. So if it's okay with you, we would like to give them a few more minutes, a couple more minutes. Is that okay?
Very okay.
Oh, we're happy to chat in the meantime before we officially begin. If that's okay.
Well, if I had a magic wand and I could give you anything, what would you have what you don't have now? What's missing?
Me or my wife? Who are you asking?
You.
I have everything.
When you were a little boy, did you want it to grow up to be a rabbi?
Not a little boy, but as a teenager, yes. But some people say I haven't grown up yet, so I'm working on that.
There is a difference being childlike or childish.
Very good.
You don't want to be childish, but you are childlike as long as you live. You're playful. You're very playful and you have a good sense of humor.
Thank you.
You know what Sholem Aleichem asked you? Why is the ocean water salty? The answer is because of all the herrings in it.
That's very good. That's very good. I like that.
Yeah, Jewish people did very well in the ghetto because Jewish people can laugh at themselves. And that's really a good thing to do, to have good humor, not sarcasm or cynicism, but philosophical humor. That's very important.
I feel like you give me such good advice over here. You're going to send me a bill for the therapy, but I've never had public health therapy. So, you know, usually my therapy is private, but I guess we're a close community. They can know all my shortcomings. So thank you.
You don't need therapy. You're not smart, you're wise.
Thank you.
That's good.
That's wise, are wise.
Sorry?
Yeah, the button that says ESC on the
1 second. If we ask everyone to please, if they don't mind, just to mute themselves for a couple more minutes. Edith, the president was speaking. He's just finishing. So I think people are jumping off there. They're actually leaving him early to hear you, to listen to you. So. We would like to start momentarily. Many people are on and more getting on. Thank you. Okay. Han, you tell me when you're ready and I'll begin and then you can introduce our wonderful.
Okay.
Ready?
I think we're ready. I think you can start. Dr. Eve.
Okay, 1 second. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Wow. Edith, we're getting so many people coming on. I didn't have this many people for Kol Nidre. You're more popular than me. 100 people. Okay, good evening, everybody. I'd like to begin by first and foremost extending a very heartfelt warm welcome and a personal heartfelt gratitude and thank you to Edith, Dr. Edith Eger, for her willingness and her time tonight to share with us a little bit about, for those who have heard of her, know her, watched her on CNN, Oprah, many other shows, read her book, and have been inspired by her. Dr. Edith, Hannah will speak and give the introduction to her, but I just would like to share something with you from one human being to another, from one Jew to another, Mendel to Edith. I guess your Hebrew name is Edith or Edith?
Yes.
Okay, so, sorry?
Just go on, please.
Thank you. So from Mendel to Edith, I'd just like to thank you, but also there's been much discussion and much excitement about this evening's presentation. In addition to you being world-renowned, there's been much questions asked of me, if I can ask them of you after, of course, you present your story, because people are searching. Human beings always search. Jews, our jobs is to search and dig deep and become more spiritual, more committed, more connected. We're very blessed in our community that we have had and still have, thank God, Baruch Hashem, survivors. We don't just like to refer to them as survivors because they're truly thrivers. They're people who teach us each and every day what it means to live and live proudly. And so tonight's message, in addition to, of course, your storyline and answering some questions, people are searching very much for meaning today, both between COVID and also between, as you said, a Meshuggah world, the world gone crazy, or people placing so much negativity and sadness and harm at the forefront. People are looking for inspiration. So this is from our request for you, and in return, we give you a commitment that we will not only remember those who died in the Holocaust, but we will live more Jewishly and more humanely because of them, and because of holy people, Kadoshim like yourselves, who have inspired us throughout our lifetime and continue to do so. And Hashem, the Almighty God, should give you additional strength to be able to inspire millions around the world each and every day to make this world a place of God, a place of spiritual element, and a place of humanity. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Rabbi. That was brilliant, beautiful. You know, I'm a very proud Jew because our ancestors didn't have it as good as we did. And guess what? They never gave up. And we carry that blood. I carry that blood, never ever to give up. No one can really get to you unless you allow them. And so this is the time out period, and I'm so happy to show up in your community.
Thank you. And I'm going to hand it over now to my beloved wife. I've coined the phrase, Dr. Edith, behind every successful Chabad rabbi is her husband. And in this case, this is more or less, you like it, huh? Because
so I like it alongside.
She actually, he leads. She leads by example. She's a tremendous spiritual leader in the community and to our family. And she has, as I have had as a child, a passion and a calling to not just remember those who passed away, which is first and foremost, but to learn from those who we're blessed to have alive. And she's been on this mission to have as many people who have written books speak and share their story. And when we heard the possibility of maybe getting you, we were so elated and so excited, but we didn't share it with anyone in the community till we confirmed it. So Hannah is really at the forefront of why the people are here tonight. So I wish to extend a thank you to Hannah for all your efforts and help and love, and now hand over the Zoom mic to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi. I'm going to give us an introduction to Dr. Eger for everybody, for those of you who have read her book or who have not yet read her book. Dr. Eger, a native of Hungary, Dr. Edith Eva Eger was just a teenager in 1944 when she experienced one of the worst evils the human race has ever known. As a Jew living in Nazi-occupied Eastern Europe, she and her family were sent to Auschwitz. Her parents were sent to the gas chambers, but Edith's bravery kept her and her sister alive. Towards the end of the war, Edith and other prisoners had been moved to Austria. On May 4th, 1945, a young American soldier noticed her hand moving slightly amongst a number of dead bodies. He quickly summoned medical help and brought her back from the brink of death. After the war, Edith moved to Czechoslovakia, where she met the man she would marry. In 1949, they moved to the United States. In 1969, she received her degree in psychology from the University of Texas, El Paso. She then pursued her doctoral internship at the William Beaumont Army Medical Center at Fort Bliss, Texas. Dr. Eger is a prolific author and a member of several professional associations. She has a clinical practice in La Jolla, California, and holds a faculty appointment at the University of California, San Diego. She has appeared on numerous television programs, including CNN and The Oprah Winfrey Show, and was the primary subject of a Holocaust documentary that appears on Dutch national television. She is frequently invited to speaking engagements throughout the United States and abroad. After reading her book, The Choice, I was determined to have Dr. Eger speak for our community. The Survivor Series, our Survivor Series, was actually established while I was reading this book with the hope that Dr. Eger would be one of the speakers. I reached out to her and was not surprised to discover that her schedule was booked for over a year. When COVID happened, I had a thought to ask if she would possibly speak for us on Zoom. Well, here we are. Thank you, Dr. Eger, for agreeing to be here and to speak to us. We are so grateful and so honored to be able to introduce you and to introduce the world-renowned author, psychologist, Dr. Edith Eger. Thank you. This is such an honor. I cannot tell you what it means for me to have you here. This was a hope. This was a dream. Every page that I read in this book, as I was reading your story, I said, I must have you speak for our community. So thank you. Thank you for allowing me to have this honor.
People don't come to me, they're sent to me. You were sent to me, and that's why I am here as not Dr. Eger, but grandma, because I have 3 children, 5 grandchildren, and 6 great-grandsons, and that's the best revenge to Hitler. And so I'm here showing up for you and letting you know that The Fiddler on the Roof is one of the most brilliant things that you can watch. What a Jewish woman is how wise she is, because she knows that her husband needs to know that he makes all the decisions. And guess who makes the decisions? Because she's wise, and she knows that she doesn't have to have any ego needs. She knows exactly who she is. And I think it's the best movie to see, especially when he's asked, do you love me? And he says, do I love you? I wash your clothes, I give you children, you're crazy. And he says, I know, but do you love me? Me, the person, not what I do or, you know, and that is so brilliantly done that he wants to know that he matters to her, not what he does, but who he is. Yes. And so when you are a Jew, you have that special sense that no matter what happens, we look for the gift in it. And that's my second book. It's called The Gift. And I'm going to be very practical today to let you know that if you have any problems, just call it a challenge. There are no problems in the world, there are only challenges. There are no crises. A midlife crisis doesn't exist. Well, we go through the menopause, you can't have any babies, but who wants them anyway by then? So don't talk about crisis, just talk about transition. And now that we are going through this COVID-19, none of us were prepared for this. And that's why I come in, because I was not prepared for Auschwitz. I was not prepared to dance for Dr. Mengele. I didn't know anything about anything. And when we arrived, our Arbeit macht frei, my father said, well, it can be bad because we're just gonna work and go home. But an hour later, my father was in a gas chamber. And this is why it's so important to know that our ancestors somehow made it happen, that they bought a chicken and probably made 7 or 8 meals out of it. I know my mother bought a chicken alive and then made it kosher and went to the rabbi, God knows what. But that Friday night dinner, I will never forget when mother made the challah, and it was like an art piece. The way she was doing that, I still just want to celebrate every moment of being a Jew, because we are able to somehow make it no matter what. If I can get in the front door, I'm gonna try the side window. And if that doesn't work, I'm gonna go to the chimney. But never ever allow the enemy to overpower you. I was told every day in Auschwitz that I'm never gonna get out of here alive. The only way I will get out of here is a corpse. And guess what? I said to myself, you're the prisoners, not me. And it's temporary. And now this is temporary too. It's not permanent. And what you do with the time that you regroup, you may need to really be born again. You may need to give up the need for approval of other people, to please other people. There is no such thing as rejection. Nobody rejects you, but you give up any kind of perfectionism, because we are human and we're gonna make a mistake, and accept yourself to be human. That's all we asked for. God gave us joy and God gave us love, and love will conquer all. So here I am, 92 years old. I don't care about the numbers. I think young and I live in the present. I can only touch you now. So I'm very happy that it was meant to be. You wanted me on your community, and sure enough, it happened, Hannah girl. You came and you asked, and I want to thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
So much. And your rabbi has a wonderful sense of humor, and humor is really kept us alive in Auschwitz. Not sarcasm, not cynicism, but philosophical humor. And all we had was each other then. So if you were just for the me, you didn't make it. We had to reach out and form a family of inmates. Otherwise, you didn't make it. And I had my sisters, Magda. And Magda was heavy and I was skinny. So it's in my book, you know, when we were there in our nakedness, and she looked at me all shaven and asked me, how do I look? Hungarian women are, you know, quite vain. And I know that I had a choice then, as you have a choice now, whether you pay attention to what you don't have and what you lost. And I realized that I became my sister's mirror. And I said to her, Magda, you have beautiful eyes. And I didn't see it when you had your hair all over the place. See, people don't remember criticism. They remember when you somehow took any situation and made something good out of it, that people believe that they matter. And you matter, every one of you. And I'm happy to say hello to the other survivors here, and letting you know that God had a plan for us to guide people from darkness to light, from the prison that is in your own mind, and the key is in your pocket. To be a take charge person of your thinking, your feeling, and your behavior. So when I was liberated, I noticed that people would go through the gate and they would come back. You know, Eric Fromm wrote a beautiful book. He was one of my mentors as well. He was an Orthodox Jew. And he talks about escape from freedom. That when you're free, you can't pass the buck. You have to take responsibility. And we were liberated, but we didn't know what to do with the freedom. So people would go through the gate and they would come back and sit down. It's called learned helplessness, and the psychologist is called Seligman, talks about positive psychology. You want to really acknowledge that everything is an opportunity for an opportunity. So many people can discover the part of them that is really not working anymore. And you can't let go of anything unless you replace it with something else. It's like in the car. You have to switch gears, you have to release the clutch. And this is a good time to ask, what am I holding on to? And what am I ready to let go? Because that's my definition of love. My definition of love is the ability to let go. Let go of fear. Let go of anxiety. Fear and love doesn't coexist. We're not born with fear. We're not born with judgment. Look at that policeman who was keeping his knee on that man who was asking for water and he couldn't breathe and he kept still. Murdering. And so I am here to really let you know that unfortunately, there is no love without hate, there is no summer without winter, and we got to get those polarities and pull it together and see how we can have a lifestyle. That means you don't drink alcohol if you can help it. Of course, you can also have a little wine on Shabbat, you know, but as long as you don't overdo anything and have a balance between working, loving, and playing. And that's what I do at 92. I still like to dance. And you know what? You call my music elevator music or supermarket music because I like the big band. I like jazz. I like boogie woogie. And young people poo-poo it. But you can have your music and I can have my music, but it doesn't mean your music is better than my music. So I hope we can empower each other with our differences. That you can be you and I can be I, but together, believe me, we're going to be much stronger. So I like to unite and get rid of the us and them mentality. And love is good.
Sorry, I'm sorry for, if it'd be okay, I know many people are anxious, excited to hear a little bit about, it's impossible and unfair for us to ask you to summarize and surmise your story in a few minutes, but can you give us an overview short of your story back then and how you've transformed that today into helping and changing people's lives?
Well, you know, God was very good to me because I was put in a family when I had two sisters, Magda, who's still alive, who played the piano, my sister Clara, who was a child prodigy in violin. She was the only Jewish girl accepted at the music conservatory in Budapest, and her Christian professor smuggled her out and hid her until the end of the war. And then my parents decided they must have a son, and guess what happened? They got me. So I was the runt in my family. I became cross-eyed. My sisters took me to a walk and they blindfolded me so no one would see what the ugly sister they have. I can sing to you in Hungarian that I'm so ugly and puny and I'm never gonna find a husband. The trouble was, is not what my sisters told me. The trouble was that I believed it. That I walked in the street looking down because I don't want you to be in shock of my ugly face. So today I tell young people, nobody can define you because God doesn't make junk. You're one of a kind, beautiful. So self-love is self-care. It's not narcissistic. So my mother took me to a ballet school, and the ballet master picked me up and said, and he was Jewish, and he told me that God built me in such a way that all my ecstasy has to come from inside out. But I didn't know that word ecstasy until I ended up in Auschwitz. And I had a boyfriend. His name was Imre Friedman. And we were going to go to Palestine. He belonged to the Batar. And so we were preparing ourselves to go to Palestine. And before I was put on a cattle car in April 1944, 74 years ago, I must really add that genocide is still with us as we speak, but never in the history of mankind such a scientific and systematic annihilation of people existed that they celebrate. It's called the final solution by Eichmann. And after one day they were celebrating, they can put 30,000 Jews in the oven in one day. That needs to be said. Never in a history of mankind this happened. So my boyfriend and I had our plan, and we were Zionists, and we were going to go, no Israel, but at that time was Palestine. Unfortunately, he was killed the day before liberation. But he told me that I have beautiful eyes and beautiful hands. So in Auschwitz, I would ask everybody, tell me about my hands, tell me about my eyes, because I said to myself, if I survive today, then tomorrow I'm gonna see my boyfriend. So that tomorrow, even though I was told I'm never gonna get out of here alive. So today, as I can tell you, Auschwitz to me was a time when nothing came from the outside, because the more you depend on something happening or someone who make you happy, you're never gonna be happy. It was the time to look within, as time is now for that as well. And to be able to see, not going back, that doesn't happen. There is a new beginning, there is a rebirth, there is a renaissance. And I'm hoping to be part of that, to really show that having fire and looting is not what Martin Luther King had in mind. And I was marching with Martin Luther King, and I was with him in 1963 in Washington. He didn't want us to go and loot and set fire. And I'm hoping that we learn how violence breeds violence. So I was among the dead when I was liberated. But in Auschwitz, Dr. Mengele came and wanted to be entertained. So my friends threw me in front of him because I did the entertaining in my city, especially in the Jewish community, and I welcomed the president. And so they pushed me in front of Dr. Mengele, and I ended up dancing for him. And after that, he gave me a piece of bread. And while I was dancing, I started to pray for him because he was showing who to take to the gas chamber. And I wanted to pray, not for me, but I didn't want to be the next one to be sent. So that's what happened in Auschwitz. You never knew what's gonna happen next. When we took a shower, we didn't know whether water or gas is going to come out. And that's the difference between reacting or responding, or stress or distress. Stress is fine, but distress is when you don't know what's going to happen next. So in December, I stood in line to get my tattoo. And I was told I'm going to the gas chamber. They don't want to spend the ink on me because I'm going to the gas chamber. But there was my sister Magda, and I saw that she was in another place. And I knew I needed to be with her. So I started to entertain the guard, and I was doing some acrobatics, and we were put in the top of a train, and I became a slave laborer carrying ammunition on the top of a train with a striped uniform, thinking that the British won't bomb, but they bombed anyway. And from Auschwitz, I ended up going all the way down to a place called Mauthausen. And in Mauthausen, I knew I'm gonna die because all I saw was dead bodies, pieces of a body. And somehow we were gonna go to the crematorium, and then they changed their minds. And if you stopped on the way from Mauthausen to Gunskirche, you were right away shot. I revisited that place. I also went back to Auschwitz. I can tell you about that too. But the bread that Dr. Mengele gave me, I shared it with the girls. And when they saw me just about stopping and being shot, the girls that I shared the bread with came and carried me so I wouldn't die. Because all we had was each other then, and all we have is each other now. And in Gunskirchen, cannibalism broke out, and people were eating other people's flesh. I asked people to go see The Sound of Music, because I asked God to help me that I cannot touch human flesh. And I know God told me to look down, and I still have grass to eat. And I remember choosing one blade of grass over and against the other. So I can't is not in my vocabulary. I take the apostrophe and the T when someone say to me, I can't. I put it on the board. I see I have a board. I'm in my office. I can't means I'm helpless. That's a lie. You can if you want to. So I can't means I'm helpless, but you're not helpless. You can, but I cannot make you want to. See, it comes back to self-love, which is self-care. So when you get up in the morning, I hope you look in the mirror and say, "Hello, I love you." It's not narcissistic, it's okay. And I'm going to have a good day, because in the evening, life is only one day. That morning sunshine doesn't come back. So you get rid of two things. One is guilt, what I could have done and should have done. My parents had tickets to come to America and they didn't use it. And all you have to say, if I knew then what I know now, of course I would have done things differently. So forgive yourself. That if you knew then, you would have done differently. I have survivor's guilt because I didn't show up for my graduation, even though I graduated cum laude, because I could not forgive myself that I survived. So, but the biggest enemy, believe me, many times, is that voice in you that doesn't give you permission, even just collect the fruits of your labor. And the other things I think we women are very good at, mothers, we worry too much. And worry is the most useless, neurotic emotion you can ever have. Worry is in the past, guilt is in the past. And there is one thing I cannot change, is the past. I never forget it. I don't overcome it. People tell me, you're an overcomer. No, I'm not. I'm reminded wherever I go, and see people are building somewhere and I see the barbed wires, I'm back in Auschwitz. But it's fleeting. I go through the valley of the shadow of death, but I don't get stuck in there. I don't come there. So I didn't overcome, I came to terms with it. There is a part in me that was left in Auschwitz, but not the better part. Not the better part. And when I wanted to go back to Auschwitz, because my mother told me in a cattle car, we don't know what's going to happen. Just remember, no one can take away from you what you put here in your own mind. And I told my sister, we lost our family. I want to go back to Auschwitz. And she told me that I'm an idiot and I'm a masochist. We went through the same experience, entirely different responses. So I can only speak for myself. But you know, I went back to Auschwitz to reclaim my innocence, to assign the shame and guilt to the perpetrator. Because if not, I would still be a prisoner. So I do it for me. I give myself a gift so I can have joy and passion in life. And I'm so very fortunate to really be a proud Jewish 92-year-old woman of strength. You're not a strong woman, you're a woman of strength, because we look at life from inside out. Nobody makes me happy. I make me happy. When you get up in the morning, I get up in the morning, I look outside. I live in La Jolla, California, which is really a paradise. And I welcome the day, and I see birds, and the birds are singing, and there is life out there. In Auschwitz, when I looked up, there was a man with a gun. You know what? There were no birds in Auschwitz. And I don't know if you go there, whether you see any birds. I would like to know that. I went back to Auschwitz. I never saw a bird. My daughter went back to Auschwitz in November, and she called me and she said, Mom, I'm wearing a Chanel sweater. I'm wearing a fur coat. How did you do it? It was a question that I said, I did it. I did it barefoot with a little something like they wear in Denmark, wooden thing. That's what we had. And I like to be a realist, but not an idealist, because when the idealists come and they don't find exactly what they look for, they become very cynical. And I like to be a realist. I'm still dancing. I can still do the high kick, but not the way I used to dance and not the way I do the high kick. Well, I do it halfway, and people are so happy to take it halfway. I can do it for you too, but I do what I can do now at 92, and it's okay as long as my feelings belong to the ancestors who walked 40 years in the desert and they never gave up. So I hope you are also very proud that you're here and you gave up something to listen to me. And I'm very grateful that God sent me to you tonight, and see how tomorrow morning you may not go back to do something that is really not good for you. Jewish people talk to themselves and ask yourself, is this going to empower me or deplete me? Is this going to give me 5 minutes of pleasure and maybe 50 years of pain? Things like that, that you constantly become your own good parent. So give birth to the you that was meant to be free. And there is no forgiveness without rage. You got to go through the rage. Don't cover garlic with chocolate. It doesn't taste good. You don't open up too fast. That's what I'm telling, especially children who go away to college. Be very careful not to open up your heart and soul, because you want to be known a certain way. You're polite, you don't cuss, and you eat, of course, as well as you can to be as healthy as you can. But I love education, and that's what I tell young people, to have good education and have fun by doing it. So when you're angry, you're actually having other emotions under that anger. You just don't get anger automatically. You have a lot of pain inside you. Somebody just triggers something in you, some kind of something that happened maybe in your family of origin. And that's what I do. I think that grief has to do with revisiting the places where you've been, and then relive that experience as if it would happen now. And it's me who is going to carry you through that journey. But you're not revolving, you are evolving, just like a butterfly. You have to shed the chrysalis. And butterflies, I study them, they don't fly right away, they rehearse at least 50 times. So be sure that you don't expect of yourself to have an overnight change and go from all to nothing. The two questions that I was going to tell you in the beginning, the first one, when did your childhood end? To me, it's a very important question, because we grieve over not what happened, but what didn't happen. And when my granddaughter wanted to go to her dance and asked me to buy her a dress, and I bought her a beautiful Laura Ashley, and I came home and I started to cry. Out of the blue, I didn't understand. The word understand is very academic. I have to go to the classroom for that. I didn't understand, why am I crying? I just bought Lindsay a dance, beautiful dress, and I realized that I'm crying because I never went to a dance. So don't minimize like other people didn't have it. It doesn't really do you any good unless you really stop thinking as an adult and go back. Because when a woman told me I was sexually abused, but I don't know how to tell you because you were in Auschwitz. And I said, in Auschwitz, I knew the enemy and you didn't. So, don't compare things. Nobody's competing who suffered more, but suffering is feeling. And when you suffer, you become stronger inside. And no one can get to that unless you allow them.
Dr. Edith, I would like to just pause for a minute and share something that occurred a few months ago when I came home one night. My Hanala, my wife, was so elated. And I wasn't sure why. Maybe we won the lottery. Maybe we're going on a special vacation. This was before COVID. I said, what's going on? She was so excited. I hadn't seen her that way since maybe the day I proposed, maybe. So she says, why is she so excited? She says, because Dr. Edith Eger just confirmed that she's going to be speaking to us. And I must confess, because I'm speaking to a therapist, I was excited, but not as much as her, because I didn't understand what you bring to the table. I didn't appreciate, but I'm listening. So many beautiful messages. I have a whole Konditry speech, keep a speech. I'm going to speak for too long this year. I had people sending me messages as you're speaking, say, wow, wow. So I want to thank you. I also want to If I may, with great respect and deference, just correct one thing you said. You refer to yourself as 92 years old. You're 92 years young. Because
Thank you so much. I think young. So I told you I have two questions. And one is, when did your childhood end? And because some of you may grew up with a mother who had migraine headaches, and she didn't come out of the bedroom until 5 o'clock in the afternoon, still in her pajamas. Or you had a dad who was really not well either, or maybe he was gambling too much or drinking too much. And so I think it's very important to revisit the places, relive that experience, but then you revise your life. And that's what I do. That's what I do. I got a wonderful call many years ago. I took care of a doctor who medicated himself, and we took care of it, and he lives in another state. And he called me and he said, I never forget what you told me. And I said, what did I say? And he said, you told me that there was no Prozac in Auschwitz. See, what we do with feelings, you know, we talk about feelings, we medicate the feeling, we do everything with feelings except feeling the feeling. Don't medicate grief. I see that at the medical school. Every time the new people come in, don't medicate grief. So the second question is, would you like to be married to you? You don't have to tell me, just think about it. Are you fun to be around? Are you a good, compassionate listener? Or do you ask questions or give advice? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? You know, so pay attention what you're paying attention to. Because what you think, that's what you're going to create. And if you think fear, you're gonna invite more fear. Whatever you pay attention to, you reinforce the very behavior that you want extinguished. So think about your thinking and pay attention what you're paying attention to. So if you want to lose weight and you tell me you're gonna lose weight, and then you say, I'm never gonna lose weight because I'm pigging out on this and that and this and that. And I know then you're not gonna lose weight. But if you say that tomorrow morning, I'm not gonna put sugar in my cereal or in my cappuccino. So there is positive thinking that means nothing unless it's followed with a positive action. So when I talk to teenagers, many times tell me, that's a good idea and I'm gonna. I call them gonna people because they're always gonna, but then they go home and they start procrastinating because I tell them, first you do what you don't like to do, and then you do what you do like to do. So you become a good parent to you, because good parents will raise, hopefully, children that they can go into that world that is not waiting for them, and they can become emotionally and financially independent.
Thank you.
Be a good mommy to you. Be a good, loving mommy to you. But there is that little girl, there is little boy, and that's why God gave us temptation. You know why? So you can practice the freedom of choice.
Wow.
I like a Hungarian chocolate cake. And when my daughter came home and she told me she wasn't invited to a birthday party, to her it was life and death matter. And what do? I don't know much about compassionate listening. So I take her to the kitchen and I cut a piece of cake and I make chocolate milk, and I told her, you eat that, honey, and you'll be just fine. You know, I didn't know how to realize that she wanted to be part of that group, and she felt she was rejected. But no one can reject you but you. You just wanted something and you didn't get it. So everything has to do with your expectations. And I hope that we Jews have survived so much, the desert, the Holocaust, and there is the state of Israel, and that we are really, hopefully, very proud of the blood that we carry within us. I know I am. So what questions do you have?
Thank you. This is, I'm getting so many comments about all the things that you're referring to, and it's so inspiring. So thank you so much. I just wanted to, things come to mind as you speak, and I'm jotting them down. I don't want to take this all for my questions. I have a couple from people who have asked me to convey questions prior to the class, so to the presentation. So first of all, you said that as a Jewish people, we talk to ourselves. Said it couldn't help, you know, I like to tell jokes, and you're a shrink, a doctor. So they tell a story about Yankel, he's my mascot, who goes to the doctor, the shrink, and he says, doctor, I need help. The doctor says to him, what's your issue? How can I help you? He says, doctor, I talk to myself. So the doctor says, Yankel, don't worry, everybody talks to themselves. Don't worry, you're not so unique. So he turns to the doctor, Yankel, and he says, doctor, yeah, but you don't know what a nudnik I am. So I'm thinking, when you say we talk to ourselves, as you say, we only have ourselves to be responsible, to be accountable for, to feel good for, and to feel bad for, which you spoke about fear before. So this is a segue into the question, because what you share, so many of your points are a combination of Judaism, Jewish philosophy, Talmud, modern day. You shared about recovery, about just for today. If the day's gone down, all we have is today. So many deep messages. But the question was on fear. You said that yesterday's fear, it's actually a Talmud. Ha'ava ayin, what happened in the past is gone. We can never reclaim. V'ha'asid adayin, in the future, no one knows what's going to be. It's a future. We can't tell. V'ha'hoiv, in the present, keharifying goes back like the blink of an eye. It's from the Talmud. Da'go minayim, so the Talmud says, why should we worry? Right? Why worry? It's a futile emotion. So the question was asked, people that you have a story that has a tragic past, a promising present, and a very hopeful future. That's why I read and how you try and train people. But what about, and this was actually asked in this part of the second question by a son of a survivor who's also in Auschwitz. He asked today, he's a doctor in our community, respected, a loving man, and he said, what about all those Holocaust survivors who survived but didn't necessarily have such a positive attitude or didn't have the ability to have it? How did you counsel them? What was your, if you did interact with them, what was your counsel to them? And I guess by extension, what he's asking is the second generation, which have been so adversely affected by their parents going through what they went through, how would you encourage them to move forward and have that attitude?
I'd like to tell you about, after two beautiful girls, my son was born, and my late husband was so delighted because his family had a Rabbi Edith Eger, a very famous rabbi, and now he was so happy that his son is going to carry that name. But my son didn't develop the same way as my daughters. He didn't sit up on time. He did not walk. He did not talk. And when he was 4 years old, 5 doctors told me that they're going to prepare my son for retarded children. And I asked, where do I get a second opinion? America is a country of second opinion. And they told me to go to Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, Maryland. A beautiful neurologist, Dr. Clark, took my son, and a week later said, your son is not retarded, he only looks that way. He may have said encephalitis before birth, but then he said, your son is gonna be what you make of him. And I'm shaking. He's gonna need speech therapy, occupational therapy, you name it. and go to the cerebral palsy clinic. And he said he's going to do everything everyone does. It's going to take him longer to get there. How much do I owe you? $10 in 1960. My son John graduated as a top 10 student from the University of Texas. That's a survivor's mentality, that there is a way to see that I dropped school, I went back to school, and my son, I'm supporting him, and he goes to Washington and fights for the disabled. But his spirit is soaring. And he goes to the Chabad, and they love him, and they accept him, and they take anybody. And that's why I am such a proud and very, very, very much in love with the Chabad and the people who give of themselves day and night. And I want to really tell you that it's love is not what you feel, is what you do, that you commit yourself to someone else. And I had my sister in Auschwitz. She was heavier than I was. I ate the soup. She ate the soup and the bread, which was some kind of a sawdust. And the following day, I had the bread and I told her, you know, I'm fine. I'm fine. And I gave her my bread. So all we have even today is each other. And I hope to really ask people. I had a young boy who told me he's gonna kill all the Jews and then using the N-word and the Mexicans. And he was part of a David Koresh in Texas. But I never told him where I come from. I just told him to tell me more. And he never knew my background at all because he was a lonely child and gave up all his freedom to someone who only took care of his narcissistic needs. So you got to hopefully acknowledge that the best person that you have for a lifetime is you. All other relationships will end. So this is what I like you to practice. Self-love is self-care. It's not narcissistic. Really, it's okay to fall in love with you, but that doesn't mean you overdo it and then everything you do. And temptation is always here to stay, but whether I act upon it or not, it's whether I want to be a child or an adult, because while you blame, you're still a child. You ask your child, why did you hit your brother? And the brother thinks, oh, mommy needs a reason. And they say, because he hit me first. And then you say, don't lie to me. And then I tell you, if you want your child to lie, don't want your child to lie, don't ask why. Why requires the because. So I say it's better to say not why me, but what now? Because I can only control the present. That doesn't mean I forget the past. It doesn't mean that I don't cry almost every day when I see something. When I walk on cobblestones, I had steak the other day and I was walking on cobblestones and all of a sudden I was crying. It's not over. It's not over. Don't try to run from the past. I think it's good to go back to the lion's den and look at the lion in the face and reclaim your innocence and assign the shame and guilt to the perpetrator and begin to forgive yourself. And that's what I have done. But when my sister didn't want to come with me, she told me, you know, I'm a masochist, I'm an idiot. I didn't ask her the second time because Magda does it her way, and I do it. Now I tell you one thing. My sister, according to me, was born in 1921, my other sister in 1924, and me in 1927. My sister tells you that she's 98, and next year I think she's going to be 100. And I don't know how is that going to be handled, because she cheats herself in 1 year. But I'm not going to say anything. I'm just telling you between us that never lie about your age. It's going to come back to you one way or another. It's not worth it. I live in the present. And I hope that you are truly recognizing that you don't have a job, Rabbi. You have a calling. And you live your calling. And you take a very understanding wife to be able to try to protect you and trying to do as much as she can so you come home to a loving home. The wives of the rabbis are my heroes. So.
Thank you. Our heroes too. Thank you.
And your job is to show your children how you love their mother.
Did
That you
anybody
get
call
up in
you
the morning.
Presentation to talk to you about my marriage? Did my kids call you or something?
You're a role model to the children, how you take care of their mother. And that's what you're doing. It's not what you feel, it's how you make her life easier.
I'm in trouble. Thank you.
Anytime.
We're going to open this up just for a couple of questions because we're nearing our end time. I know how much you've inspired me, and I see from the comments, again, thank you. Hashem, God should give you the koach, the gesund, to be able to continue inspiring each and every day as you are our present. You're our gift today, so thank you. We're going to open up. If anyone has a couple of questions, please raise your hand and you can unmute yourself and ask live Dr. Eger. I feel like Larry King over here. You have 2 minutes on the air. Yes, who's going ahead? Anybody would like to ask a question? Wow.
Or if you have a statement, it doesn't have to be a question.
Anybody, so whoever wants, just unmute yourself for a moment and then ask a question. Otherwise, we'll.
Julie Averbeck, ask your question.
I wrote a question in the comments. I'm wondering what you would say makes a life worth living, because my last semester at school, I spent a whole semester on a class called Life Worth Living, and we talked about different religious traditions and their perspectives on this question. So I've spent hours and hours thinking about it, and I would love to hear what you have to say.
Well, do you have an arrow that you create and follow that arrow? Because if you have a goal, you're going to pay more attention what you're focusing on. And what you focus in would have to get you closer to your goal. So when I came to America, we had a big storm. And I know that I came with the displaced persons on a ship that somehow we went somewhere else. But then the captain knew how to come back and go to New York. So in Hungary, we say, don't try to sit with one behind on two chairs. Don't, divide yourself too many ways. The Hungarians cuss a lot, so they don't use behind, they use the other word, because then you become half-assed, excuse me. You see, I'm sorry, but that's how we Hungarians.
I like it. I'm going to use it.
Yeah. And I think Jewish people also tell you that you cannot dance on two weddings at the same time. or you cannot ride on two horses at the same time. So I would really write down, if I were you, I am, and then put down some of the ways that you want to practice. And the number one would be, I am powerful. I am powerful means that I have the power. And I'm very, very selective who's gonna get my anger. I'm very selective who's gonna get my anger. No, because when I'm angry at you, you don't suffer, I do. So you got to be real selective and be careful, because when you are angry, chances are you have a lot of anxiety, but you don't have anxiety, you're thinking in an anxious way. Everything starts with your thinking in the limbic system. I don't want to give you a lecture on the brain, but it's very, very good to study the brain. And so I would put down, I'm powerful because I have the power how I'm going to choose for myself. I'm assertive. I'm not non-assertive or aggressive. Non-assertive people allow other people to choose for you, and aggressive people choose for other people. And assertive people choose for themselves. So when you're a child, you sit in a back seat and you mess around. But then I ask you, do you want to be a driver or do you want to be driven? There is no freedom without responsibility. It's anarchy. You want to be a grown-up, then you go to someone and take a risk, and that's the best four-letter word. And you tell someone, I like to get to know you. I hope you like to get to know me too. And that person said, please take it. So frankly, that person tells me, I really don't want to get to know you. That doesn't mean I'm rejected. I just wanted something and I didn't get it. So then I use a next four-letter word, next. So you're not revolving, but you're evolving. And that's what I tell women who go out with a guy and then he doesn't call anymore. You know, that means I'm too old, I'm too this, I'm too that, and you start putting yourself down. You just wanted something and you didn't get it, so go next and see. Risk is a very good letter, four-letter word, and I like it a lot. So see to it how you can maybe stay in school, maybe go get a doctorate. The more education you get in America, more doors open up for you. When I was 40, my supervisor told me to go get a doctorate. And I said, by the time I get a doctorate, I'll be 50. And he told me, you'll be 50 anyway. So I want to tell you that too. You cannot stop the chronological age. It's the way you're going to accept every moment in life as a gift, because you don't appreciate what you have until we lose it. So I appreciate every moment in life that I made it thus far, and I'm going to be very happy in my deathbed, not asking what the world has given me, but in what way I did everything in my power to see to it that the children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren will never experience what I did. I work preventively and I do everything in my power. And that's what I'm committed to, and that gives me meaning in my life and purpose. Because when I was liberated, I became very suicidal because I realized that my parents are not coming back. And I really wanted to die. And then I realized that if I die, I'll be a coward. But if I'm going to live, I'm going to be for something. I'm going to be for life. I'm going to be for, hopefully, to hold hand in hand and form a human family. So that's where I am at 92 today. And hopefully we'll talk again. My birthday is September 29th, I'm a Libra. I always look at both sides, on the one hand, on the other hand, on the one hand, on the other hand, you know. So why don't you do that? And maybe you can call me and I can possibly give you my opinion. Just remember, it's my opinion. It doesn't mean it's the truth. It's my truth.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, before everybody goes, I just want to remind you, Dr. Eger, the book Choice, if you have not read it yet, I would suggest that you try to get it. It's fascinating. And I already pre-ordered on Amazon The Gift, her upcoming book. And I'm waiting for it to be printed and then to be sent to me. I want to thank you so much, Dr. Eger. This was fascinating, so much more than I ever believed that it would be. I know that you've shared so much that's really going to enhance all of our lives, and you're just amazing, just what you've gone through and how you help others and how you make a difference, and really an inspiration to all of us. And thank you so much for being here for us, for allowing us this time with you. This was really a treasure. So thank you, and thank you everybody who joined us today.
Thank you.
Dr. Eger,
Thank you, Rabbi.
thank you. I want to add to what Hanala said and thank you on behalf of everybody here, because
Thank you.
inspiring is an understatement. I would venture to say that this has probably been, from the 25 plus years Hanala and I have been in the community, the most inspiring presentation we have ever heard, ever. And that's not just sweet talk, that's the truth. So thank you. Thank you for that. Halavai, we can take all your wisdom and apply it just somewhat into our lives. We'll be better for it. As you said, evolution, not revolution. I like that. That's
Yes, and Shabbat Shalom and Sukkot is a wonderful way that we celebrate every holiday. And I wish you well, and I hope that your community will somehow in some way support each other and show up for each other. So I'm glad I was able to show up for you, and shalom, peace.
Shalom.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Be blessed and be gesund. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Be well. Laila tov, everyone. Thank you, Hanala.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody for joining.
Thank you so much.